Hello again, it's Jess or JashiiCorrin and welcome back for another video. Today I'm going to be taking you through my new collections bullet journal, which is in this A5 Scribbles That Matter. As some of you may remember, at the start of March 2018 I released a video going through my original collections journal, which was in this royal blue LT 1917. However, for a couple of reasons, I've decided to switch to the Scribbles That Matter journal. There's a link to that video in the cards above, but as some commenters indicated, they found the background music annoying and distracting. Hopefully the tracks I use today are a little bit better. In that last collections video, I talk about how I was an LT 1917 fangirl, and had a variety of journals that were all from that brand. So really, that begs the question, why did I decide to switch? So the first and biggest reason for this was paper quality. When I first started bullet journaling, the journalists that I was taking the most inspiration from were all using LTs. So naturally I had to have one too. It was the first expensive book of paper that I'd bought myself. I loved the dot grid, the numbered pages, and in general I was just swept up in the love for the LTs that the majority of the community was showing at that time. The ghosting didn't really bother me. I felt that it kind of made my journal look lived in. However, this ghosting did actually start to bother me quite a bit when I started to share my journal more on social media. It was kind of upsetting to me that I was making what I deemed to be pretty cool spreads. But then when I went on to video or photograph them, the ghosting really distracted from the overall aesthetic. And yes, I do know that is a major first world problem, but it was genuinely something that really made me fall out of love with the LTs. In July 2018, I was ready to start a new everyday journal, and I wanted to try out a different one that I'd been hearing a lot of good things about. From the first Scribbles That Matter, I knew that I was eventually going to have to replace this collections bullet journal. The ghosting I experienced in the STM was significantly less than that in the LT 1917. And I know I'm not going to be going back anytime soon. The second reason that I decided to switch over was what I'm going to call consistency. I like to make it so that the main journals I'm using at any given point in time are the same journal. The matchy aside of that, for certain collections, it's actually pretty important for me to have a journal type that's the same as the one I'm using in my day-to-day life. Those collections are my pen swatch pages. I want to have the most accurate representation of what my pens are actually going to look like on the STM pages, rather than just trying to make a pen color judgment for the STM when the swatches are actually on the LT. I hope that makes sense, but yeah, essentially I wanted the pen swatches in my collections journal to better reflect what the pens would actually look like in my other most used journal. Those reasons aside though, let's jump in and have a look at my old collections journal, what I decided to transfer, change, or scrap. In my last collections bullet journal video, I also talked about why it was I felt the need to have a separate journal just for my collections. I also specified what kind of collections I like to keep in here, rather than in my day-to-day journal. Just as a quick summary, if you hadn't seen that video, the reason I made this one is because I was sick of actually just transferring my collections when I wanted to start a new journal. Things like my pen swatch pages, especially for my Tombow collection, would take ages to set up, and it just didn't seem necessary to have that same collection in every single one of my journals. Ignoring the amount of time it would take to set all these collections up again. I also felt like it was a bit of a waste of paper. I ended up filling up my day-to-day journals faster because I had these long-term collections in there that realistically could have had their own book, which is why I decided to start this collections journal. This one was going to be specifically used for long-term collections that were going to last longer than the life of individual day-to-day journals. Well, at least that was the intention. So jumping into this one. I never actually got around to filling out this front page because it never actually left my house. I didn't really feel the need to name or put my address on it, because the chances of it getting lost outside of my house when I don't take it outside of the house are pretty slim. In terms of the index, I decorated this with some washi tape, and I wrote down the majority of the pages that I'd set up, though I haven't numbered the ones down the bottom here. The first page I had was the spreads to try page. So this is where I put down some general ideas of things that I might want to include in this journal. And you can see that I have decided to transfer this one, although I have decided to change up the layout a bit. The second page I had were my big goals for life and some of the smaller steps I could do to achieve those. Looking back on this one now, some of these smaller steps really weren't all that small. The categories for this one were based on the level 10 life, and although at the time these categories were something I was actually quite connected to, nowadays I like to set my goals slightly differently. Therefore, I have decided to change this page. The next one I have is a pen swatch page, and if you've watched my last video, you'll remember that I did accidentally rip the top of this page here when I pulled up the washi tape I was using to keep these columns really straight. Although I don't have anything against this page, I do prefer now to have my pen swatches on separate pages for separate type of pens, so I have changed this one as well. Next we have my movies to see spread. And although I feel like this one would look really cool when it was all filled in, for my now current collections journal, I didn't want to have to spend the amount of time I spent on this one in that one. And the time that I've spent really was just ruling all these lines up. Although again I think it looks good, one of my main concerns for my current collections journal is the time cost I have for setting up spreads. In this journal in particular, because I felt that all of these collections were going to be kept for such a long while, I should really put effort into the spreads that I was making. Because these were going to last me longer than the life of a regular day-to-day journal, I wanted to make sure that the spreads I was setting up were actually, in my mind, aesthetically pleasing. This unnecessary pressure I was putting on myself was also one of the smaller reasons that I decided to change journals. All in all though, you can see that I decided to change this one as well. These next two pages I've decided that I'm not actually going to put in my journal for now. I may decide that I actually quite like having them and go back to using them later. Both of these though, they didn't really get used, although they had good intentions. This one in particular, the programs to reinstall when my computer dies, was kind of a page I made out of spite. My computer at the time was going through a fair few troubles with having to reinstall operating software and all of this other stuff. So I wrote down a list of all of the programs that I felt were really needed every time I had to reformat my computer. This when did I last page, I didn't really use. I think that these dates are probably really inaccurate because I just never felt the need to come back in here and actually write down when I did these things. So this one in particular I will be scrapping. This page here was for my Xbox gamer score, however I now actually track this digitally instead of on paper, so I won't be needing this one either. The 100 Days of Productivity was probably the first instance of me putting a collection in here that really shouldn't have been in here. Because this one does have a finite life, it was going to last 100 days since I started, it didn't really fit the criteria of being a long-term collection. The main reason it ended up in here though was because it was going to last just slightly longer than the life of the journal I had, which was going to finish in December. So because it doesn't really fit my criteria, I have decided to scrap this one. For my quotes to letter page, although I do like this page and I think that it's valuable, I never actually ended up doing anything with the quotes that I put down here. So this is one I've also decided to scrap for now. This page I split into two different sections, so I had ideas for my Instagram posting and Bujo theme ideas. The Instagram post ideas I don't really need because nowadays I have a pretty good idea of what I want to post on my Instagram, though the bullet journal theme ideas I have decided to transfer. My wish list I have decided to transfer, as well as my reading collection, or books to read, though both of these I have changed the style of. Just as a side note, I know how everybody loves this bookshelf style of tracker for your reading list, but it is so damn difficult to get the title of a book onto such a narrow spine. From that comment you can probably tell that I haven't gone with this style of layout. I mean, I really like the way it looks, I think it's super cute, but as you can see, it didn't really get used. This page here was for the sorting and rating of my music, which I used to do a lot more often when I actually used iTunes. Nowadays I'm pretty much exclusively on Spotify, so most of the things I do with my music are making new playlists. So I won't be needing this one. This topic planning page, although a cute reference, isn't really something that I actually need. In general though, it goes over some of the things I want to consider when I'm making a new topic or planning a new unit. This one was a BMI reference that I had for masses between 100 kgs and 56 kgs, just because I found myself looking up BMI quite often at the time. I don't really use it so much anymore, so I'm going to be getting rid of that one for now. My TV shows spread, however, certainly keeping that one, and it is going to be in a similar format to this, though slightly different. This was probably one of the most helpful collections that I had in this entire collections journal. So this is my Tombow desk stand, or it shows me where each of the pens that I have from the Tombow collection sit into the desk stand that I had. I don't have this stand anymore, however, so this one I have changed the style of. But as I mentioned, this is probably one of the most useful ones that I had. After this, we have a spread that we were using while we were house hunting. Now as we actually have our house, we don't really need it so much anymore. And this is probably another one of the spreads that I have in here that doesn't really fit my criteria of being a long-term collection. I have absolutely no need for this now, so it certainly doesn't need to come across into my new one. For my Instagram tracking page, this one is really fun to look at, but it was such a mission to set up, and also kind of to fill in. Each of the little Polaroids we have here were individually coloured, using 7 different colours of pens. I mean, personally I think it looks great, but it was such a mission. For my bounce lettering reference, I'm not sold yet on whether I will or won't keep this. There might be a point that I do transfer it, but at this stage I'm not too sure. This one I won't be needing because I keep my ideas for YouTube videos in a different place. And this page here, I was writing down things that I was doing as a maid of honour for my friend, but she hasn't really gotten me to do very much, so I'm not going to be including this one either. Also, this would be another one of those pages that I don't really need in a long-term collections journal. For my YouTube growth tracker, I'm going to be changing that one as well. And then I certainly want to transfer my KonMari checklist. Another one of my probably most used spreads was this one here, and this is for the Tombow Dual Brush pens again, however it's just listing out which colours are in each of the different packs. There are some missing now as they've released some new ones, so I'm probably going to have to think about how I set that up, but certainly this is one that will be coming over into my new collections journal. After this we have all of the places that the Good Eats Club has met for Good Eats. This is just a kind of little group of me and my friends, and we try to go out for a meal once a month. We've been a little bit slack lately, well, both of recording where we've gone and actually going places. So at this stage, the transferring of this one is kind of a maybe. For this one, you can maybe see that I lightly penciled out a heading here. It says healthy food I don't hate. Obviously, I got around to doing that one. So another spread that doesn't need to be in here, I wrote down the season 1 rankings of RuPaul's Drag Race because I felt like I wanted to make one. I don't know, I think I maybe wanted to have a reference of it in here for some reason. I'm not really too sure why though. As you can see, I'm going to be scrapping that one. But it was kind of fun to set up. I just really don't need it again. For this event idea spread, I'm going to be scrapping that one for now. I may decide to bring it back because I think it has a few good ideas on here. But at this stage, I don't think I really need it. Another Instagram tracker, which I am going to be changing up the style of, but still including. And then my places to eat list I am going to be transferring as well. The last page we have here is the Milkliner swatch page that I set up. I originally did this as part of the Milkliner review video I made, but then I ended up doing a live video for that one. I probably won't end up swatching the Milkliners, just because I'm not really going to use them. I might end up doing a giveaway with them or something. At this stage I don't have any immediate plans though, so yeah, this one's getting changed. So the last page I filled in this journal was on page 43, which gives me a significant amount of this book still left to use. Trust me when I say I'm not an advocate for wasting our resources. I do believe in using journals to completion. However, I'm also an advocate for allowing ourselves to use things that, for lack of a better term, spark joy. This collections journal was not doing that for me. The ghosting on the paper and the strange need I had to make the pages pretty made coming into this journal feel a lot more like a chore. I will be using the rest of this journal for the ideas videos I make. You know, the ones where I show you XYZ number of ways to make something like a habit tracker or a certain style of weekly spread or whatnot. So now that we've seen where I've come from, let's go and see what I've got going now. When I first got this Scribbles That Matter journal, I decided I wanted to add a little bit of visual interest to the cover. So I went in with my Colero Finetech gold watercolour paints and added some gold watercolour to the little cactus, my favourite icon on the front cover, and also just the title. Although I don't think the camera probably really does it justice, this is actually quite pretty. I like the contrast between the dark blue and the gold. As I already mentioned, I felt a little bit of stress when I was coming into my collections bullet journal, the last one, because I was trying to make all of the spreads somewhat pretty, aesthetically pleasing, which kind of ended up distracting from the function I had originally planned for it. I kept this in mind when I was setting this one up, so you'll see that the spreads I've gotten here have been quite a lot more simplified when compared to the last ones. Because in my day-to-day bullet journal that I have currently, I really enjoyed decorating this front splash page, I decided to do the same thing in my collections journal. To do this one, what I started off with was the washi at the top and the bottom, and then I went and put that thin 3mm washi all over the page in these random straight lines to make these small triangular segments. I then just used watercolour paints to go over the top of this to get those different coloured sections for each of those triangles. Being the queen of impatience that I am, I also did rip up some of the paper when I went to remove that washi tape, and I also ripped up some of the sides of the sticker here, because I laid this one down first for some reason, and then decided to paint, and it got wet, and it's made of paper, so it ripped. Anyway. After the painting and the ripping of the paper, I then went and stuck some of these stickers in, mostly at the parts where you had a whole bunch of lines connecting into one, because you had this white space. Some of these I decided to leave uncovered, as you can see, but all in all, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think it looks really cool. So moving on in, after my splash page, we have the start of an index, and you can see there isn't really a lot here just yet, but you can see I have transferred some of the things that I talked about in the last journal. So the first spread I have is collections to try, or different spread ideas. Going with that idea of simplicity, I went with 4 separate columns, washi tape at the top and bottom, and then little washi dividers. And I'm just writing myself down a list of any of the spreads that I think I might want to include in here. Once I've made the spread, I can then tick it off as well, just so I can see if I'm actually using the ideas that I set out for myself. So running over some of the ideas that I'm intending on doing pages for soon, we have things to adultify, which is just a list of the things in my house that I want to get a more adult version of. So for instance, recently we did an upgrade of all our cutlery, and I know that sounds really boring, but the new cutlery is really nice. I want to do a list of 5, 10, and 15-minute tasks, so that then when I have those little pockets of time where I feel like I could fill it in with something, I have a list of things that I could actually do. And then another list that I particularly want to make is a master meal list, because I find that every time we come to organize what's for dinner, we spend such a long time umming and ahhing over what we can have. So it would be nice to have just one collection where I can go for all of the different meals that we have for dinner that we both enjoy. After this one, we have my TV show spread. So this one's taking the same form as the last one. You just have a box at the start of each entry, which I can colour in once I've completed watching that show. And then for some of them you can see I've actually started putting down boxes for each of the seasons that the show has. I'll get to these ones eventually, and there are probably plenty of other TV shows that I am interested in watching. After this one we have a similar page but for movies. This one I decided not to put each entry on a separate line, because there are probably a lot more movies that I want to watch compared to TV shows. This is another spread that at this stage is looking a little bit barren, but I know will get filled up. After this one, continuing that whole consumption of media idea, we have my books to read list, and also my games to play list. I know it looks really stupid, but I actually really like the title over there. Also, as you can see, these lists need a little bit of loving. If you have any ideas for TV shows or movies or books or games that I should check out, please do let me know in the comment section below. After this one, we have my bullet journal theme ideas and my Instagram follower tracker. You'll have been able to see by now that on each page I'm just doing a little bit of simple decoration, usually using some washi tape. For the first couple of pages in particular, I wanted to put this in rainbow order. So we have my red page, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. When it came to the Instagram page, I wanted to make this special, and I actually used this holographic washi tape. After this one, we have my YouTube subscriber tracker, where I've used this metallic gold washi. And then on this page, we have my wish list. The last page I have, at least at the start of the journal, is my apocalypse, and the idea for this one I took from Mistral Spirit. There's a link to her channel in the description box as well. What this is essentially just a bucket list with a different title, so apocalypse meaning things to do before the apocalypse. From memory it came from a TV show, I just can't remember what the TV show was. As you can see, however, I just have a simple title and then these 4 columns for the things that I want to do. So that makes up the first section of this journal, where it's just lists of things that I want to do or check out. In the back of my journal is where I'm going to be keeping reference pages. So we have 2 reference pages at the moment. We have the list for my Staedtler Tri Plus fineliners. And let me tell you, it was so difficult to find the colour names for these pens because they're not actually on the pen themselves. I had to go to the Staedtler website and look through each individual colour and figure out if it was the colour I actually have or something else. But it's done. It's done. It's in here. It looks pretty okay in my opinion. And there's some room for me to get some more, so that's kind of good too. And then the other page I have down the back here is my Tombow Jaw Brush marker page again. You can see I have a different type of stand now. I've got the travel case rather than the desk stand, so I've drawn this page up to represent that. I am intending at some stage to get those new Tombow colours, so I'm not too sure what order my pens are going to be in yet. So until I actually have those markers and have decided on the overall ordering of my pens, I'm not going to be colouring this one in. I'm really excited about getting more collections pages in here, and as we saw on those first few pages, I do have some ideas for what I want to include. What I'd like to know though is, what are your must-have and go-to collections? For me, it's certainly my media lists, like my to watch and to read pages, and also of course my swatch pages. Thank you for watching. If you liked today's video, please do make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already and wanted to, feel free to subscribe to my channel to see the videos I release every Thursday and Sunday. I'll be back again on Thursday with another weekly plan with me, and so until next time, bye! I originally did this as part of the Milk Liner review video I made, but then I ended up doing a live video for that one. I can't actually remember if I showed this page in that. I might have showed this page in that. But as you can see, I am changing this one, and I probably won't be ending up swatching the Milk Liners. Milk Liners? That's not a word. I probably won't end up swatching the Mild Liners. Mild Liners, they're Milk Liners, mate. Oh dear lordy.